When someone disrespects your boundaries, they're essentially saying, my wants are more important than your needs. My convenience matters more than your well-being. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's not kindness. That's control. Welcome to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. I've spoken to tens of thousands of people all over the world about the importance of kindness. And I am obsessed with how we can bring more kindness into our daily lives and restore balance to a deeply unbalanced world. Every episode, I'll give you 3 practical strategies to create a kinder world, and I'll do it in 30 minutes or less. No fluff, just valuable, actionable content that you can implement in your life immediately after listening to help you actively create a kinder world. There's no time to waste. Let's dive in. Welcome back, my friend, to episode 34 of the Kindness Extremist podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. I'm so glad you joined me for part 2 of our special 2-part series on how to recognize a toxic relationship. If you have not listened to part 1 yet, I encourage you to stop listening now, go back to episode 33 and check it out because we covered 3 critical warning signs that you definitely do not want to miss. Today, we're continuing our exploration of toxic relationships, and I promise you, these next 3 warning signs are just as important as the first 3. As I mentioned in episode 33, this is a topic that I'm deeply passionate about because I've seen too many good people, kind people, loving people, generous people stay in toxic relationships far longer than they should, convincing themselves that things will get better, or worse, that they're somehow the problem. My hope is that by the end of this 2-part series, you'll have the clarity and the courage to make healthier choices about who gets access to your time, your energy, and your hearts. We've covered a lot of ground in part 1, but there's still so much more important territory to explore in part 2. There'll be more stories to share, and as mentioned in the previous episode, the names and certain details have been changed to protect people's privacy. Okay, if you're ready, let's continue our journey to detoxify our relationships together once and for all. The 4th sign that a person or a relationship may be toxic, and the first sign of this particular episode, is that they disrespect your boundaries. And I need to be straight with you from the jump. This one is personal for me because I spent way too many years of my life allowing people to disrespect my boundaries because they didn't want to be seen as difficult or unkind. Let me share a story that still makes me cringe when I think about it. Many years ago, I had a friend, let's call her Diane, who had a habit of calling me at all hours of the night. I mean, all hours, 11 p.m., midnight, 2 a.m., didn't matter. The first few times it happened, I assumed it was an emergency, but it never was. She just wanted to talk about her day, her boyfriend drama, or whatever was on her mind. After about the 3rd or 4th time this happened, I finally said, hey, Diane, listen, I love talking to you and all, but I really need my sleep. Can we just talk during normal hours? You know what she said? Oh my gosh, you're so tight. I thought we were close enough that we could call each other at any time. I guess I was wrong about our friendship. And just like that, she flipped the script and made me feel guilty for having a completely reasonable boundary. So of course, I checked her and enforced my boundary like a boss, right? Well, not exactly. I backed down like a punk. I apologized, and she kept calling whenever she felt like it. This went on for months until I was exhausted, resentful, and honestly starting to dread seeing her name pop up on my phone. Here's what I've learned since then. People who respect you will respect your boundaries. People who are toxic will treat your boundaries like suggestions, or worse, like personal attacks against them. Let's break down what boundary violations actually look like, because they're often way more subtle than my late night phone call situation. First, there's boundary testing. This is when someone deliberately pushes against a boundary that you set to see if you really mean it or not. For example, when you say, hey, I can't lend you money anymore. And then they come back a week later asking for just a small loan. Second, there's boundary guilt tripping. This is when someone makes you feel selfish, mean, or unreasonable for having boundaries in the first place. I can't believe that you won't do this for me. Or, I guess you don't really care about our friendship. Or, family is supposed to help each other. And third, there's boundary stomping. This is when someone flat out ignores their boundaries like they don't exist. You say, hey, please don't share my personal business with others. And they tell everyone anyway. Here's what makes boundary violations so damaging. They communicate a fundamental lack of respect for you as a person. When someone disrespects their boundaries, they're essentially saying, my wants are more important than your needs. My convenience matters more than your well-being. That's not love. That's not friendship. That's not kindness. That's control. Let me give you another example. I have a friend whose uncle, we'll call him Uncle Ray, who refuses to respect my friend's dietary choices. My friend is vegan. She's been vegan for over a decade. It's a personal choice based on her values. But every single time she's at a family gathering where Uncle Ray is present, he makes it his mission to try to get her to eat meat. Hey, just try a little bit of the steak here. Or, one bite of chicken won't kill you. Or, this is why you're so skinny, you need protein. She said no countless times to this guy. She's explained her reasoning. She's set clear boundaries, but her Uncle Ray treats it like a game, like her boundary is a challenge for him to overcome. You know what that tells me about this Uncle Ray guy, besides the fact that he's likely a jerk? It tells me that his desire to be right, to control the situation, or to prove some ridiculous point is more important than respecting my friend's autonomy. And that, my friend, is toxic behavior, plain and simple. Now, I want to address something important here because I know what you might be thinking. But Shola, what if I'm too rigid with my boundaries? What if I need to become more flexible? Here's my personal take on this. Healthy boundaries have some flexibility built into them, of course. If a friend has a genuine emergency at 2 a.m. and needs to call you, that's different from someone who just wants to chat because they're bored. Healthy people can recognize the difference between a boundary and an emergency. Toxic people, on the other hand, can't do that, or more importantly, they just won't do that. So let me tell you how my situation with Diane eventually resolved, if you want to call it that. After months of resentment building up, I finally had a come to Jesus moment with myself. I realized that by allowing her to violate my boundaries repeatedly, I wasn't being kind to either of us. I was being a doormat, and I was enabling her to continue treating people in a way that would ultimately damage all of our relationships. So I had a direct conversation with her. I said, Diane, look, I care about you, but I can't continue like this. I need to respect my boundary about phone calls after 10 p.m. If you can't do that, then we're going to have to reevaluate our friendship. And you know what happened? She got angry, like really angry. She accused me of being selfish, not being a real friend, of changing and becoming someone that she didn't recognize. In other words, she showed me exactly who she was. At this point, I had to make a decision. I could continue sacrificing my well-being to maintain a friendship with someone who didn't respect me, or I could honor my boundaries and accept the consequences. I chose my boundaries, and it wasn't a hard decision for me. Our friendship changed significantly after that. It's been many years, and we're not close anymore. And honestly, I'm okay with that. My sleep improved, my stress levels decreased, and I had more energy for relationships with people who actually respected me. Here's what I need you to understand. Your boundaries are not up for negotiation. They're not suggestions. They're not mean or selfish or unkind. Your boundaries are essential protections for your well-being, and anyone who can't respect them doesn't deserve unlimited access to you. So here's your first practical kindness strategy of the episode. I want you to do what I call a boundary respect inventory for the key relationships in your life. Ask yourself these 4 powerful questions about each person. 1, when I set a boundary with this person, how do they typically respond? Do they respect it, push back, or ignore it completely? 2, have I found myself repeatedly explaining or defending the same boundaries to this person? 3, do I feel guilty or anxious when setting boundaries with this person because I anticipate their negative reaction? And 4, has this person ever tried to make me feel bad for having boundaries or suggested that real friends and real family wouldn't need boundaries? Write down your observations. Be honest with yourself about what patterns you see. If you're consistently seeing disrespect for your boundaries from certain people, that's critical information. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to cut them off completely, but it does mean that you need to make some serious decisions about how much access they get to you and whether you're willing to accept that behavior long term. Remember, teaching people how to treat you starts with enforcing your own boundaries, even when, especially when, it's uncomfortable to do so. The 5th sign that a person or a relationship may be toxic, and the 2nd sign of this episode, is that they create drama wherever they go. To be clear, I'm not talking about the fun kind of drama on Netflix. I'm talking about the kind of drama that some people seem to carry with them like an invisible storm cloud that rains chaos on everyone around them. Stop playing with me. You know exactly the type of person I'm talking about. They show up and within minutes, there's conflict, tension, or some kind of interpersonal explosion. Let me tell you about someone who used to work with many, many years ago. We'll call him Ricky. Ricky was talented, charismatic, and good at his job. He was also a drama magnet of epic proportions. In the 2 years that Ricky and I worked together, he had conflicts with everyone. Supervisors, co-workers, people in different departments, HR, even the people in the parking garage couldn't stand this guy. At first, I felt sorry for him. I was like, man, Ricky must really be unlucky. He keeps ending up in these terrible situations with difficult people. But after watching this pattern repeat itself over and over, I realized something. Ricky wasn't unlucky. Ricky was the common denominator. Everywhere he went, drama followed, or more accurately, he created it. Here's the thing about drama creators. They often don't see themselves as the problem. In their minds, they're always the victim of other people's terrible behavior. Let's break down what drama creation actually looks like. First, There's triangulation. This is when someone creates conflict between two people by pitting them against each other. You've probably seen this before. For example, they'll tell person A something negative that person B supposedly said, then tell person B something negative that person A supposedly said, and then sit back and watch the fireworks. It's like when someone comes by your desk and says, "Did you hear what Sarah said about your presentation? She told me it was unprofessional." Then that same person would go to Sarah a little later and say, "I can't believe what's being said behind your back." Before you know it, you and Sarah would be in conflict, and the drama starter would be in the perfect position as the concerned friend trying to help you both. Second, there's oversharing and boundary crossing. Drama creators love to share information that is not theirs to share. They'll tell you about someone's personal problems, their financial struggles, their relationship issues, things that person shared in confidence. Why? Because it creates tension and it gives them social currency through gossip, and it positions them as the person who's in the know. Third, there's constant crisis mode. Their life is always falling apart. There's always some emergency, some betrayal, some catastrophe happening, and these crises always seem to require other people to drop what they're doing and pay full attention to them. When you look closely at these crises, you'll notice something about them. They're often situations that the person created through their poor choices or destructive behavior. And if that wasn't enough, here's what makes drama creators especially toxic. They don't just affect themselves, they create a ripple effect that damages entire social networks, workplaces, and families. Think about it this way. One drama creator can turn a peaceful workplace into a war zone. They can split a friend group into factions. They can make family gatherings something everyone dreads instead of enjoys. So let me share what eventually happened with Ricky. After months of watching him create conflict after conflict, I made a decision. I was going to maintain strict professional boundaries with him. No personal conversations, no sharing of information that wasn't absolutely necessary for my work, no engaging in any gossip or drama he tried to bring to me. And you know what happened? Yes, you're probably setting a theme here with all these toxic people I'm bringing up. He got upset. He told other people that I had changed and became cold and distant. He tried to create drama about the fact that I wouldn't engage in his drama. How weird is this? But I held firm, and my work life immediately became more peaceful. The other people who set similar boundaries with Ricky had the same experience. Eventually, thankfully, he moved on to another job where he could find a fresh audience for his chaos. Here's what I learned though from that experience. You cannot change a drama creator. Just like all the other situations, they have to want to change themselves. Your job isn't to fix them or manage them. Your job is to protect yourself from being sucked into their vortex of chaos. Now, I want to make an important distinction here. And I've said this before and we're saying again. Some people are genuinely going through difficult times and need support. That's not the same as being a drama creator. The difference is this. The people going through hard times are dealing with external circumstances largely beyond their control. Illness, job loss, grief, etc. Drama creators are dealing with consequences of their own choices and behaviors. People going through hard times want solutions and support. Drama creators, on the other hand, want an audience and attention. People going through hard times will eventually stabilize and reciprocate support. Drama creators will just move on to the next crisis. So in the spirit of keeping it real on this podcast, there was a time in my life when I was a drama creator, and I hate admitting this, but it's so true. During a particularly insecure period in my 20s, I found myself creating conflict and drama in my relationships. I'd test people's loyalty, create situations where I could play the victim, and generally make everything about me and my needs. It wasn't until a close friend sat me down, thankfully, and said, "Shola, everywhere you go lately, there's drama. Have you noticed that? Maybe the problem isn't everyone else." Then, and only then, did I start to wake up. That conversation stung a lot, but it was the truth I needed to hear. I had to do some serious self-reflection and work on myself to break those patterns. It wasn't easy, and honestly, it's still something that I still have to be mindful of because those old patterns can creep back in when I'm feeling insecure or threatened. But here's what the experience taught me. People can change. I mean, I changed, but only if they recognize the pattern and want to change. If someone isn't at that point yet, your job is to protect yourself, not sacrifice yourself trying to save them. So with that said, here's your second practical kindness strategy of the episode. I want you to do what I'm calling a drama pattern analysis for the people in your life who you may suspect might be creating chaos. Ask yourself these 4 questions. 1, is there a pattern of conflict following this person wherever they go? Different jobs, different friend groups, different relationships? 2, when this person tells me about conflicts with others, are they always the innocent victim? And is everyone else always wrong? 3, do I find myself caught in the middle of their conflicts with other people? And 4, after spending time with this person, do I notice increased tension or conflict in my other relationships? Pay attention to the patterns, fam. One conflict doesn't make a drama creator. That's fair. but a consistent pattern across different contexts and relationships, that is a red flag. If you identify someone as a drama creator, your best strategy is usually to create distance and strict boundaries. Don't engage with the drama. Don't take sides in their conflict. Don't share personal information that they could then use to create more chaos. It's not unkind to protect yourself from someone else's drama. Personally, I call that wisdom. Hey, fellow kindness extremists, it's me, Shola. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're mowing what I'm growing, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in. Okay, I'll stop. If you're enjoying what you're listening to so far, I would love it if you would take a moment to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating and a review. Those incredibly kind acts go so far in helping me to reach as many people as possible who will join the movement to actively create a kinder world. I appreciate you so much, my friend. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Let's talk about the sixth warning sign of a toxic relationship, third sign of this episode. And honestly, this might be the most important one of all. How you feel about yourself after spending time with someone. This one cuts deep for me because I've been on both sides of the equation and neither side feels good. Let me tell you about a relationship I had years ago. We'll call her Jennifer. Jennifer was someone who I dated briefly in my 20s. On paper, we seemed compatible. We had similar interests. She was smart, funny, super cute. And my friends seemed to like her. But there was something that bothered me about her that I just couldn't put my finger on at first. After spending time with Jennifer, I consistently felt less than, smaller, like a diminished version of myself. She had this way of making cutting comments that seemed innocent on the surface, but left me feeling inadequate. You're gonna wear that? Oh, okay, I mean, if that's your style, I guess. Or, that's an interesting career goal. I just think you could aim higher, you know? Or, my ex was really good at cooking, but your attempt was sweet. What? Individually, these comments might seem minor, but collectively, they created this constant drizzle of inadequacy that made me feel like I was never quite good enough. I remember one specific moment that made me realize how toxic this relationship was. We're at a party, and I was telling a story to a group of friends. I was animated, everyone was laughing, I was in my groove. And then Jennifer chimed in. Oh my gosh, you should hear Shola's actual voice when he tells the story. This is his trying to be interesting voice. Everyone got quiet, the moment died, and I felt like 2 inches tall. Later, when I told her that she hurt my feelings, she said I was being too sensitive and that was just a joke. But that's when I realized Jennifer consistently made me feel worse about myself and then made me feel bad with having a problem with it. Let's break down what this toxic pattern actually looks like. First, there's subtle criticism disguised as concern or humor. For example, I'm just worried about you, or I'm just being honest, or can't you take a joke? These phrases are often covered for putting you down. Second, there's comparative diminishment. That's what she did with her ex-boyfriend who was supposedly a better cook than me. They frequently compare you unfavorably to others, their ex, their coworkers, their friends, even themselves. The message is always clear. You're not measuring up. And third, there's achievement minimization. When you accomplish something, they find a way to diminish it. For example, that's great, but did you hear what Sarah accomplished? Or, well, it's not like you cured cancer or something. Fourth, there's constant correction. They feel the need to correct you constantly. Your facts, your stories, your opinions, even your feelings. The underlying message is this: you're wrong, I'm right, and you need me to fix you. But it's more than just relationship failure. Being in a relationship with someone who consistently makes you feel bad about yourself can lead to decreased self-esteem, increased anxiety and depression, loss of confidence in your own judgment, and difficulty trusting your own perceptions and feelings. And again, this is what is so insidious about this type of toxicity. It's often subtle enough that you question whether it's really happening. You think, God, maybe I am being too sensitive, or maybe they're just being honest, or maybe I'm overreacting. It's tempting, fam, but don't do it. Instead, remember that healthy relationships should make you feel more confident, more capable, more yourself, not less. Let me share what happened with Jennifer. After a few months of feeling progressively worse about myself, I finally summoned the self-esteem to break up with her. You know what her response was? I always knew that you couldn't handle being with someone who challenged you to be better. Even in the breakup, she found a way to make me feel inadequate. It took me months to recover from this. Like, my confidence was shattered after that relationship. I had to actively work on rebuilding my self-esteem and trusting my own judgment again. But here's what the experience taught me. How someone makes you feel about yourself is one of the clearest indicators of whether they're good for you or toxic for you. Now, let me address something important. I'm not saying that everyone in your life should constantly praise you and never give you constructive feedback. That's a cringy form of insecurity that I would never advocate for on this podcast. Instead, just remember this. Healthy people can give you honest feedback in a way that builds you up, even when they're pointing out areas for growth. Toxic people use brutal honesty as a weapon to tear you down. And almost always when it comes to this brutal honesty stuff, they're way more interested in the brutality part than they are in the honesty part. Healthy feedback comes from a place of genuinely wanting you to succeed. Toxic criticism, on the other hand, comes from a place of wanting to diminish you, often to make themselves feel superior. Let me give you an example of the difference. Healthy feedback. Hey, I noticed that you seemed nervous during that presentation. God knows I've been there. Do you want to practice together next time? I think you've got really good content and I want to help you feel more confident delivering it. On the other hand, here's what toxic criticism looks like. Wow, that presentation was rough, man. You really need to work on your public speaking skills. It's painful to watch, honestly. See the difference? One builds you up while addressing an area for growth, the other tears you down. And I want to share something else that's important. Sometimes we're the ones making other people feel bad about themselves and we don't even realize it. I mentioned earlier that I've been on both sides of this equation. There was a time in my life when I was so insecure that I constantly put others down to make myself feel better. I'd use humor as a weapon. I disguised cruelty as just being honest. I'd minimize other people's achievements because I felt threatened by them. And again, and as always, it wasn't until someone who deeply cared about me said to me, Shola, why do you always make me feel like I'm not good enough when I'm around you? That's when I realized what I was doing. That was a gut punch moment in a life full of gut punch moments. I had to take a hard look at myself and acknowledge that my own insecurity was turning me into a toxic person. The work I did to change those patterns was some of the hardest and most important work I've ever done. Yes, required therapy, honest self-reflection, and a willingness to sit with some very uncomfortable truths about myself. Here's your third practical kindness strategy of the episode. I want you to do what I call the post-interaction check-in. For 1 week after each significant interaction with the people in your life, take a moment to check in with yourself. Ask yourself, do I feel better or worse about myself after spending time with this person? Do I feel more confident or less confident? Do I feel energized or drained? Do I feel accepted for who I am or like I need to be someone else? Just keep a simple note on your phone. Don't make it complicated. Just jot down the person's name and a few words about how you feel. At the end of the week, review your notes. Look for patterns. If you consistently feel worse about yourself after interacting with certain people, that's critical information. It doesn't matter if they claim they're just being honest or trying to help you. If the net result is that you feel diminished, that's a problem. And here's the harder part. If you notice that you're making others feel bad about themselves, take responsibility for that. Work on it. Get help if you need to. Breaking toxic habits is hard. I get it, but it's worth it. If maybe someone shared this episode with you, this is an opportunity. Maybe it's a sign that you need to know. Remember, you deserve to be in relationships where you feel valued, respected, and built up, not torn down. And the people in your life deserve the same from you. All right, my friend, we've now completed our 2-part series on how to recognize a toxic relationship. Let's recap all 6 warning signs that we've covered between this episode and part 1. So from part 1, episode 33 of this podcast, 1, they drain your energy every time you interact with them. 2, they refuse to take responsibility for their actions, blame others for everything, and never apologize. 3, they're chronically negative, pessimistic, and reject any attempt at finding solutions. From part 2, today's episode that you're listening to now, 4, they disrespect your boundaries. 5, they create drama wherever they go. And 6, you feel worse about yourself after spending time with them. Remember your practical takeaways from today. 1, create your boundary respect inventory to see who consistently violates your boundaries. 2, do the drama pattern analysis to identify chaos creators in your life. And 3, conduct the post-interaction check-in to notice how people make you feel about yourself after you're done with them. If you're experiencing multiple signs from this list with the same person, it is time to seriously evaluate whether that relationship is healthy for you and what changes need to happen. I want to emphasize something crucial, and I'm going to say it again. Recognizing toxicity isn't about being judgmental or being unforgiving. It's about being honest with yourself about what's really happening in your relationships. Some toxic people are toxic because they're hurting and don't know better. Some are toxic because they choose to be. Either way, you're not required to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. You can have compassion for someone else's struggles while still protecting yourself from their toxicity. These two things are not mutually exclusive. And here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes history isn't enough. Sometimes good intentions aren't enough. If a relationship is damaging your mental health, your self-esteem, your peace of mind, or your other relationships, something has to change. Only you can decide what's right for you in your situation. But whatever you decide, make sure it's based on honest assessment of what is, not wishful thinking about what could be. Creating a kinder world starts with being kind to yourself. And sometimes the kindest thing that you can do for yourself is refuse to accept toxic behavior from anyone, no matter who they are or how long you've known them. My friend, thank you so much for joining me for this special 2-part series. I sincerely hope these episodes gave you the clarity, validation, and the courage to make healthier choices in your relationships. You are worthy, my friend, and you deserve the best of what life has to offer. This is your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa, and you now know that kindness can't be weak because you just experienced the strength of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Until next time, my friend, the journey to a kinder world continues. Thank you for listening to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I have one favor to ask. If you could kindly hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and a review, not only would that be incredibly kind, but by doing so, you're actively playing a role in growing this movement and ideally getting us one step closer to creating a kinder world. I hope to see you next week for another episode of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Bye for now.